You know, like many people, when Astro Bot won Game of the Year, I couldn't really comprehend how that could have been even possible. But now having platinum this game, I can confirm that, yeah, it would have been my Game of the Year too. Like many others, when Astro Bot was announced at the end of May last year, I didn't really give it much thought. It looked like a cute little game that was harmless and was family friendly, but nothing to be taken seriously. One must remember that the Astro Bot character had always been associated with testing out PlayStation accessories, going all the way back to 2013 using the PlayStation camera and then the PlayStation 4's Playroom, and was used again as a tech demo for Astro Bot's Playroom for the PlayStation 5, which allowed players to experience the functions of the DualSense controller. The idea of creating an entire game around a character associated with PlayStation accessories just sounded silly, to the point where I never really considered playing this game. So I think many people were shocked that not only was Astro Bot nominated for Game of the Year, but it somehow actually ended up winning. This made absolutely no sense, and I couldn't wrap my mind around how this could have happened. I immediately picked up a copy, and I even streamed my first playtime with this game, and these were my exact thoughts.
I'm afraid this is gonna be a game that I take one look at it. I don't think it's very good. I think it's stupid. The idea is stupid, and I think it's ridiculous. And then I'm gonna absolutely somehow fall in love with it. I'm afraid this is gonna be one of those kind of games. It's like I'm gonna criticize it at first, and then I'm gonna play it for like a number of days, not want to stop playing it, and be like, okay, now I see why this game won Game of the Year.
And that statement ended up being 100% true. I immediately fell in love with this game. I mean, with me being such a massive PlayStation fanboy and proud of it, this game was absolutely perfect for me. And I loved every single second I was playing this game. In fact, I love this game so much, I actually started streaming my first time playing this on January 3rd. And due to my busy 2-job work schedule, I actually went out 4 days later and purchased a PlayStation Portal just so I could play Astro Bot at work. And even though I started having some technical difficulties at first, once I got them smoothed out and got the PlayStation Portal working, that's all I did, nonstop. And I was able to platinum this game in like 20 hours. So yeah, when a game is so good, it can convince me to buy an accessory that allows me to play it wherever I want. I mean, I can't think of any other game that's convinced me to do that. So yeah.
Now the story for Astro Bot is so bare bones basic that anyone can follow it. You and your fellow Astro Bots are traveling through space in your PlayStation 5 when you encounter an alien that damages your ship, ripping out its CPU, causing not only your ship to crash onto a random planet, but causing all of your friends and multiple key components to be separated across multiple galaxies and planets. And it's up to you to travel through all these galaxies and planets to not only recover these key components so you can repair your ship, but also rescue your fellow Astro Bots too and unite them all once again. And there's nothing more than that. Very simple, very clear, and it works.
And you know what? I don't think the story needed to be anything more than what it is. I mean, we all like to think that the top games seem to have these very deeply and highly sophisticated stories that pull on our emotion, or teach us a life lesson, or takes us through a journey. But I think there's something about just keeping it in its bare, simplest form. But I think the pure enjoyment factor means that it doesn't need a sophisticated story. I mean, that was something that I was very, very surprised with. And I underestimated Astro Bot. I mean, this was a game that I immediately just blew off, and I didn't think it could really do all that much. And much to my surprise, as simple as the story was, by the end, there were some definite emotional moments. I got emotional after some things that happened at the very end of the game, because I just thought about this incredible, difficult, and challenging journey that I had just gone through with Astro Bot to save all his friends, and now to go through this just climactic, awesome final battle. And then for him to do something that I didn't expect to happen, and then just I underestimated just how the effectiveness of how a simple story could affect me. And for that, I have to give Astro Bot's story, even in its simplest form, far more credit than I thought I could give it. And yeah, this really was a surprise. This makes Astro Bot, without question, probably the most pure, fun, enjoyable game that fills me with joy that I've played in like 15 years. And I didn't see that coming, and heck, I'm glad I got my hands on this game.
Now, Astro Bot plays as an old school style action-adventure platformer in a similar style to classic older games like the OG Spyro games or even Mario 64. There are more than 6 galaxies that you will have to explore with multiple different planets to visit. Now, like the original Mario games, your objective will be to fight your way to reach the flag at the end of the level. Now, the amount of creativity that is used in each individual level that you will play through is extremely impressive. Several of the levels are even inspired by popular PlayStation franchises like God of War, Horizon, and Uncharted, and the gameplay style actually changes quite a bit depending on what level you're in, and that was something I was not expecting. Over the course of the game, you will encounter multiple different attachments for Astro Bot to use, which are specifically designed for the level that you are traveling through, and knowing how to properly use that tool to get through specific level parts is really impressive. Now, without question, the best gameplay factor for Astro Bot is its creative use of the DualSense controller. Now, to me, the DualSense controller has been one of the biggest technological factors that separates the PlayStation 5 from the PlayStation 4, and it always seemed that Astro Bot's playroom really took full advantage of everything that controller was capable of, far better than even some PlayStation exclusive titles, and that is very much improved upon in Astro Bot, making this game the single best PlayStation 5 game that takes advantage of all the capabilities of the DualSense controller, and also adds a level of interaction with the game that I never experienced before in any game during this generation of PlayStation. The challenge factor is also quite present in the kind of way that even if you find yourself getting frustrated, you'll never want to quit, and it's the kind of platformer that I grew up with when I was a kid, and I found myself feeling very rewarded when I was actually able to complete one of these extremely difficult levels at the end.
So this is definitely the type of game that you're really going to need to understand a solid layout of the map level that you're playing on, especially some of the more challenging ones, and then be able to perform precise movements in order to progress. This is very much something that you actually have to get better in order to move forward on certain levels. Now, I will give you guys a little bit of a tip. If you do happen to try to play this with the PlayStation Portal as I did, I would recommend trying to avoid playing some of those main challenge levels. I did happen to notice that because your movements have to be so precise, there is a little bit of a delay if you're playing on the Portal, and I was noticing that for certain levels, I couldn't quite beat them because movements had to be so precise. But when I went back home and I just started playing them with the regular controller, it worked just fine. I didn't have those issues. So that is something to be just kind of a little bit hesitant about. I think if you play some of the more standard levels, I think you'll be just fine, but just be cautious of some of the more challenging levels. Now, on top of that, I just think that this is a sign that I think this type of game needs to come back. Games that are a lot more simpler. I mean, trust me, we can always have our more fully developed, photorealistic, more complicated, more story-driven games. That's perfectly fine. But I think every once in a while, I think some of us all need to go back to our origins and go to play a game that we felt that, well, at least for me, is the type of game that I started playing with games. I mean, I've openly said that something like Final Fantasy VII is one of the most important video games I've ever played because it made me like a story-driven gamer that fell in love with JRPGs. But if I go back even a little bit further than that, it was really something like Super Mario 64 that made me fall in love with gaming in general. And this game very much reminded me of that. It was kind of like the essence of Mario 64 had traveled through time and was now embodied in this game called Astro Bot that I underestimated. And heck, I'm glad I again, fell in love with it as much as I did.
For me, this game ran incredibly smooth, and even though when it comes to its visuals, it's not photorealistic as we are normally accustomed to for this generation, this game is still gorgeous to look at, and with the amount of customizations that are possible in this game, Astro Bot is just as spectacular as some AAA titles. As you play through the game and collect gold coins, you can then purchase capsules, which then can give you access to new outfits that can not only change the look of Astro Bot to familiar PlayStation related characters, but you can actually change the look of your ship. And there's also a factor that allows you to purchase accessories for other characters that you have saved, which allows you to interact with them. The soundtrack for Astro Bot is also exceptional, with multiple themes adding the perfect level of spectacular atmosphere in worlds that you will explore. And in some levels gives you the proper beat that you can listen to in key sequences that even I wasn't expecting to be in this game. I even found myself randomly humming the theme song from time to time. There are a ton of fun activities that you can experience with an insane amount of different characters that you will interact with, and even after you've beaten the game, there's actually a solid amount of extras you can try out, with one function even allowing you to replay specific moments that you will no doubt enjoy.
As I'm sure you can tell, I absolutely love Astro Bot. I highly underestimate it, and I'm glad that I was actually able to get my hands on a copy of this, because at the time of its announcement, the Game of the Year, it was actually really hard to try to get a copy of this game. Now, as for someone like me who loves PlayStation, has all types of PlayStation merchandise, it got me to buy a PlayStation Portal, and heck, I even got a PlayStation tattoo, kind of symbolizing my love for PlayStation. This was literally the perfect game for me. So the question was not whether or not this game was gonna get a 10 out of 10. The question is, how high on the list would it get? And I can openly say that as of right now, this is without question the best pure exclusive PlayStation 5 game I've played to date, because I consider something like God of War Ragnarok kind of a hybrid between 4 and 5. So as just a pure PlayStation 5 game, there are no other better ones. There is no other game I've played that is as more fun. And there's no other game on PlayStation that utilizes the DualSense controller to this capacity. So if I could give this game the only real criticism I could give it, I would say that if they do make an Astro Bot 2, I would recommend that they make more levels be kind of centered around other key well-known PlayStation franchises, because throughout this game it really only focused on God of War, Horizon, and Uncharted, and I think that they had enough content and sure enough time that they could have made levels kind of revolved around certain franchises, because they have the characters in the game. So it would have been cool if they actually had a specific level, or they had more levels that were focused on certain games. I think had they had that aspect added, it would have been severely high on my top 10 out of 10 added list. As it stands right now, this takes the number 7 spot. So as of right now, Astro Bot is the 7th, my 7th most favorite video game of all time. So again, if I had to give Astro Bot a review, a ranking, obviously it's gonna be a 10 out of 10. And again, it probably takes the number 7 spot as being my 7th favorite video game of all time. So that's my review of Astro Bot. If you had a chance to play Astro Bot, I'd like to know, what were your thoughts? And if an Astro Bot 2 does come out, what's something that you would like to see? Tell me what your thoughts, share your thoughts with me and everyone else in the comments down below. And like always, I want to thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I'll see you guys next time.